All right, so we have some time for questions before we move on to the next section, if you guys can handle it. Questions? Comments? Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, it seemed a bit weird when you were making the comparison, I think, between Lamech and Noah.
Yes.
And, both of them had 3 sons,
Yeah.
and we see 4 people on the Lamech. One
Right.
of them is a daughter.
Yes.
I was just noting it.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
like for us, just looking on it might have seemed a bit confusing. But
Yeah.
one
Well,
of them-
that's a great observation. And I think the intention is for us to notice it. One of the things that we are going to see, there are a couple other places in the genealogy where we're told that there are sons and daughters. For example, in Genesis 5, in the early part, we're told that Adam had sons and daughters. There are a couple of other places. I don't remember them immediately. But I think the idea of the mention of the daughters, when we get to Genesis 6, we're going to be told that the daughters of men, basically had children with the sons of God. And so we're being told that not only men were being produced in both lines. You have sons and you have daughters. But the emphasis is on the sons, because that is through which the line, the name would be counted. It would be through the male descendants. And so we have a preponderance of these references to men as descendants. But yes, it is interesting that Lamech, we're told specifically that he has a daughter. Something to think about. Yeah. Great observation. Yes, go ahead, Julius.
It's interested in Genesis 15, it says, your very great reward.
Yes.
It's not just a reward, it's
Yeah.
a very great reward.
Yeah.
And as you drew up the point of reward,
Yeah.
I thought to myself, do we see what God is offering as a very great reward? Is our interpretation of reward in sync with God's? I think that's where the conflict happens.
Yeah.
Where, you're giving me that, but this is really what I consider
Yeah.
reward.
Yeah.
And so if I can sync those two,
Yeah.
I'm in a better place.
Right. Yeah. And so you're interpreting why God says great, your very great reward. So not just I'm your reward, I'm your very great reward. And I think in context, what's going on, I think Abraham is having a hard time because he's focused on one thing. And he's so focused on one thing, he can't see what he has. And God is saying, no, I am your very great reward. And it comes right out of his mouth. Well, what happened to the son? And sometimes we don't appreciate what we have in a relationship with God. The fact is, it sounds bad, but it is not enough for us. We say, yeah, man, I'll serve you, I'll be happy with you if I have this other thing. And God is saying, no, I'm what you need. You need to rejoice in me. Yes, Simone, go ahead, and then Eddie.
Yeah, you were talking about walking with God.
Yes.
And it just, what comes to mind is just God trying to help us along the way and prompting us and directing us back to Him.
Yes.
Like it just brought to mind Leviticus, where he gives them these laws and he says, be holy as I am holy.
Yes.
And I think he's trying and he's trying and he's trying over time. Just say, no, learn from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do as I do.
Yeah.
And I'm showing you this, I'm directing you this so I can help you.
Yeah.
But we don't listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. God's concern with our holiness is not because He's a prude, but because He wants to have a relationship with us. God is a holy God, and if we're not holy, then we cannot have a relationship with Him. It's like when he's telling them about the camp and all the stuff that they must do, like, if they go to fight war and they've got to cover up their excrement and so on. He says, because I'm a holy God. And, the idea is if they're not holy, they are going to be harmed by His holiness. So there's a problem. He wants our relationship with them, but they've got this issue that prevents Him from getting close to them. Or when, he says to Moses, he's coming down on Mount Sinai, and he already told Moses, don't let the people push through. And he tells Moses again, and Moses says, they're not going to push through. I already told them what you said. And God says, okay. He has a concern for us that if we're not holy, that we are going to die in his presence. But he's doing his best, as you say, Simone, because he's trying to get us to be holy because he wants to have a relationship with us. I think that's a point. Yeah, great. Yes, Eddie.
Looking at Enoch
Mm-hmm.
and the statement made about his life,
Yes.
I guess I'm asking the question of what am I missing? So we have the Bible, the stories, the commandments, the teachings of what is expected to help us understand God better, have a relationship. What does Enoch have as it relates to history, as it relates to having an example, spiritual mentor, if you will? And therefore, what am I missing in terms of when he says he walked with God versus we using that phrase in teaching each other about what it is to walk in God? There seems to be something I miss here. Because we have so much more in terms of knowledge, or would appear, written knowledge, I should say, not knowledge through relating to God. If he had a direct, I don't even know, so tell me, how would you describe the statement or his relationship with God versus what we have or what we understand?
Yeah. So we only have what is in the text, which is why there's a lot of room for reflection here and meditation. God hasn't given us a lot because he wants us individually to sit with and to think about it. I'll give you a couple ideas, but this is not a complete answer because these texts are written for us to meditate on them. You know what meditate means? It's like chewing the cud. You chew. I believe this is what the cows do. They bring it up, and then they bring it back down. So you regurgitate. Sorry for that image. But the idea is you're constantly, in some places, it's the idea of you're thinking about it so much that you're talking to yourself about it. You're muttering it under your breath. This is a level of thought that I would commend all of us to as we think about Enoch. But what are we told? We're not told that he has anything more than any of us. I think the point is he's a man like us. But what we're told, he has a kid, and I don't know what the effect of that is, but after he had that kid, and I always think to myself just the impact that my children have had on me. And in terms of just, I don't know, it's just seeing a life that's been produced out of my life. I remember the moment I saw Chelsea's face the first time, and it was like I thought she was looking at me. We were told the kids can't really see when they just come out, but I'm sure she was looking at me. But whatever it was, what we're told about him is this. One, we're told that he didn't just live his life, he started walking with God, which means he was living in conformity to God, and his life was about relationship with God. And then when you combine that with Hebrews, we're told that that was an expression of his faith. That he was able to do that because he believed, one, that God exists, and secondly, that he would reward him. And God did reward him. God took him. That's all we have. So I think it's saying what we need to focus on in our relationship with God is faith, trusting God through all the ups and downs of life, being content with God as our reward, and looking forward to being taken to be with God. Now, if I just think about those three, I'm challenged because I know that for me, I got to do a lot of work on that. I got to do a lot of work on just living my life day to day, trying to please God and walk in conformity to Him, being focused on my relationship with Him, being content with Him. And my hope being not making more money so I can, buy a bigger house or a bigger car, but my hope being God's going to take me one day. And that's it. That's major for a lot of us. And if we just focus on that, that's going to change the kind of people we are. I'm teaching it, and to be honest, part of me, as I looking at this stuff, I think, right, maybe we should get somebody else to teach this because I'm not there. Yeah? So I know that's not a complete answer, but that's something for you to chew on. But, cup of coffee, pop out Genesis 5, Hebrews 11, and just keep doing this. Meditate. God will give you some answers. All right, I'll take a few more, and then we're going to move on. I see Angie's hand, I see Pat's hand, and then Sarah. And then I see Marlene. And then we're going to try to move. Yes. Go ahead in that order. I won't remember the order. The brain is getting old. I try to keep it brief. Yes, go ahead,
Okay, I try to
Angie.
keep my question brief. Okay, you spoke about the seed of the woman
Yeah.
being in enmity to the seed of the snake.
Yeah.
And then you talk about the descendants of Seth as opposed to the descendants of Cain. And one being a seed of the woman and the other the seed of the snake. It almost, if you're not careful, seem as if you're condemned to being on the side of evil, and the other genealogy is one of blessing. But I mean, we know from the Bible that everyone is presented with a choice. So can you? Is there any example in the Bible of somebody who is in the genealogy who is a seed of the snake making a decision to being a seed of the woman, and vice versa?
Yeah.
It almost seems unfair, so to speak, to be in such a position, and not right.
Right, great question. So I think how I would respond is being a seed of the woman or a seed of the snake is not so much about your lineage, but about who you are. Let's think about Jacob. He's born in the right line. How does he come out? He comes out snatching the heel, striking really, which is a metaphor for deceitful. And his whole life, he is a deceiver. That's just who he is through and through. But somehow, through the course of his life, he changes. He wrestles with God. He changes, and really, God does something to him. God has to give him a limp to change his disposition to God. And he becomes something different than he started out. And there are many other examples of persons who, if you were to trace the genealogies, they don't actually, start out. Some of the kings, it's not really about our lineage. And we're in fact told that we become children of God not through human descent, but through the will of God. So, don't read it. The two genealogies are there for comparison. But they're not saying that if you're born in this line, you're Saul. That's not the point. Because there are many examples through the biblical text that makes it quite clear that who we are, whether we are a seed of the woman or a seed of the snake, is dependent on our choices. And indeed, in your own life, sometimes you may just be being the seed of the snake. And there are other times when you are being a seed of the woman. And I think seed of the woman means you're being truly human. That means when you're being a seed of the snake and you're sinning, it's almost like you're being subhuman. I think that is the point. Hope that helps. All right, who's next? Yes, go ahead, Pat.
Okay, I think it's the motives of human.
Yes.
I think Enoch,
Yes.
his motive was pure,
Okay.
and he was willing, and God tested him and said that his motives are pure, and he was able to walk with him as a result of that. That's why, and in the other line, it tests human to see whether or not we are pure, whether or not we are willing to do what he said, and we're going to walk in that line. So that's why we will have hardship, pain, and hurt. But it's up to us to make sure that we're pure in our motives and we're going to walk clearly with God.
Right. Yeah. So you are reading from how God deals with humans generally, the fact that God looks at the heart and he's trying to help us to have a pure heart. And you're reading from that to say that that's likely what he did and was looking for with Enoch, which is a good guess, but it's a guess. Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying the text doesn't say. And that's your reflection, which is good. But I think what we also have to remember, there's been a lot of speculation about Enoch through time. They've written whole books about him because he's such an interesting character. But the text only gives us what I mentioned. But there's room for thinking about it as long as we understand that as we think and try to fill in the blanks, that we are filling in the blanks. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Who's next? Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
She's asking, what is the significance of the fact that after he fathered Methuselah, then he started walking with God? And she says it's interesting, and it is very interesting. I've always found it interesting. Again, we only have what the text says. From my own personal experience, I think having a child is a life-changing experience. And for many people, they begin to feel like, okay, for various reasons, I got to get my act together. And some people may say, boy, after you have children, you need God to walk with you because it's a challenge. I don't know what the answer is. And again, I think that's why Enoch is so interesting. It's something, I think that the text is written, there's a lot that's open-ended in it. And I think it's intended for us to reflect on and to meditate on and to seek through that meditation to understand what God is trying to tell us through the text. Sorry I couldn't tell you more than that. Yeah. I think we had one more. Marlene. Yes.
I'll pick
Mm-hmm.
Courtney. Just two reflections.
Yes.
One is about the fact that our whole purpose in life is to walk with God.
Yes.
And when you spoke about midlife, because I'm past midlife. I qualify to get preferential seating. I qualify to get preferential seating in the bank. But when you spoke about midlife and it preparing us for transition, I have to say that my first response was anxiety. And because you think of, you have all these plans and you still have dreams and plans but then there is something that is very comforting, I think, in knowing that we just have one responsibility, which is to walk with God. That at the end of the day, that is what our life comes down to. And I think it is comforting in that all this busyness and chaos that is a part of our day-to-day life, if we are able to focus on that, and like you, I'm not there yet, because as I said, my first response when you said it was anxiety first, and then I said, well, our one responsibility is to walk with God, and so it's something to reflect on. My second point has to do with Noah, which I know you're going to go into, and I just find it interesting, and I'm drawing the correlation between Noah's name, which means rest and comfort and relief, and just the earlier studies that we did on the flood and the restlessness and the chaos that water represents. And so I think I'm just drawing that, what is it now, a correlation between this rest that Noah represents and the restlessness that will unfold, I imagine, after the coffee break.
Yeah, right. Very, very well. Thanks, Marlene. And I would say, in response to your first comment, it's funny how we think about death. When the passage tells us that God took him, it's not a negative thing. It's a triumphant thing. So it's almost, and I don't think it's like God say, plan up your business and write up your will and, make sure you put this away. I think God just, the way I envisage it is, they go walking one morning and they keep walking and God says, you know what? Let's go to my place. Nobody go back. And I don't think Enoch said, well, no, I got a car back there. I think he said, okay. And he was gone. And what I'm saying is that we've got a lot of growing to do as Christians, and I include myself, because we're so attached to this world that we do not see death as a transition to be with God, because Jesus has won the victory over death. Death is a horrible thing, but because of Jesus, we pass through it. It's a necessary path we have to go through. But we're not focused on the going through it as lost my God dead. We're focused on it as, yes, that is a means for me to get past my sin and to be with God. And so a lot of it is how we think about it. And so I'm responding there to the anxiety, which I understand. I think a lot of us feel that, and to prepare for death, we've got to really we've got to go deeper in our understanding of what God intends for us in our relationship with him. Hope that helps.